Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. Every week we get together, we talk about a sci-fi movie, and that is basically it. This one is particularly special for two reasons. We're 2 days late in this going up, but we have a good reason. Because the other reason why this is special is because this is by far the longest movie we have ever reviewed. In fact, not only that, I am fairly certain this is the longest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think so. Unless you count the whole of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
No, it's a trilogy. It's three
as
movies.
one film.
No, you don't. No.
I always watch them in one go.
Yeah, but it's still three movies, right? It's still three movies. Like that. So the movie we're going to talk about is Until the End of the Earth, and
Until the End of the World.
yeah, I was just about to check and correct myself. Until the End of the World, a Wenders film which came out at the start of the 90s, and so here's a funny story about how we sort of came to be doing this, right? So Tara found this movie via Criterion and said, "Hey, this looks interesting." And then I was like, "Oh, hello, William Hurt's and it's Sam Neill, okay." And then I noticed the director was Wenders, and I happen to really love one of my favorite movies is Paris, Texas, and I also really like Wings of Desire, which are also Wenders. And I went, "Oh, hey, a Wenders movie, great, yeah, let's do that. We'll even do it soon." And I saw the runtime on IMDb. I checked the runtime, and it was like 2 hours and like 38 minutes. And I went, "Oh, that's a long movie, but hey, no worries, no big deal." So we record usually on Wednesdays, right? And on the Tuesday, Tara says, "I'm going to watch the movie. I'm going to watch this 5-hour epic." And I kind of laughed and went, "Oh yeah, very good. Right? You're exaggerating. You know what Tara's like? She's dramatic."
So dramatic.
Right? And the next day, so I'm going to watch the movie on the Wednesday. And I say, "Oh, I'm going to watch the movie soon." And Tara responds with, "Oh yeah, I got through like half of it. I've still got like 2.5 hours left." And I went, "But you're really playing up this 5-hour epic joke." And Tara's response, I believe word for word, was, "No, dude, I'm serious." And then I'm like, "Wait, what?" And I go and check IMDb again, but I scroll down to the different cuts and find that 2 hours and 38 minutes was the theatrical cut of this movie. The director's cut,
Wenders does not approve.
oh yeah, he thinks that's the Reader's Digest version. He thinks that's basically a montage of the movie. 2 hours and 38 minutes. The director's cut is 4 hours and 47 minutes. This is insane. And here's the thing, there is a movie that I know I want to see someday that is longer than this. There is a 7-hour movie by Bella Tarr that I do want to see someday. But I've never seen a movie this long before. This was insane. Like, she's starting this and realizing, wait a minute, like, we're ending Act 1, and I think I'm like an hour 50 into this.
Hey, you can't rush art.
You apparently not, no. So the plot of the movie, anyway. So we start spoiler free as we always do, of course. I'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers. The premise of the film, at least to a point, is that Claire, right? We're set in the not too distant future of 1999, right? So that's a fun
favorite.
Yeah, fun little bit. And so we're in the future. It's a movie that's shot in 4 different continents. I can't remember the number of countries. It said at the start like how many countries it was shot in. And it's not that the movie really started with this text explaining this. It's like on Criterion, it has like a little screen that says this movie was shot, and it basically it's justifying the length. It's like, hey, this is why the movie's this long, and it took this long to make, and blah blah.
It's
blah.
an epic, like. Yeah.
So Claire is this woman who has just been cheated on by her writer boyfriend, played by Sam Neill, who's named Eugene, and she's kind of just like being a zombie and going to parties and doing things around. I think she's in Italy at the start of the movie, and she runs into some other characters. But ultimately, the real sort of main part of the plot is that she runs into a character who goes by the name of Trevor, played by William Hurt, who seems to be on the run from a bounty hunter or PI or whatever, and she kind of becomes a little bit fixated with him. And she actually ends up with some stolen money from some bank robbers that also happens along the way, and William Hurt, Trevor, steals a little bit of this money, so she's like becomes desperate to track him down, and at least I felt that it was always kind of mixed with attraction. I never felt like she was just going to get her money back. It always kind of felt like
no, she was definitely like being. She definitely had other motives to go. And I think that's clear from the beginning.
And she goes after him in whatever country next, maybe Germany, I guess Berlin. And
Berlin, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and
Berlin, Moscow.
Yeah, but it becomes this sort of globe-trotting chasing after him kind of thing, and he keeps kind of slipping away, as well as getting the help. She gets this help with this other PI from Berlin to go help track him down. He has his own motives, and it becomes this globe-trotting chase around the world. And you're probably saying to yourself, on the fact that it's set in the future for the time of the movie being made, what's the sci-fi? Well, first of all, it does actually treat it like a little sort of mild cyberpunk, and I say mild, but there's a lot of technology. Even there's these little futuristic cars at various points. There's the technology to use, like the video phone calls and things like that. But there's also this like looming threat over the course of the movie, where because the movie opens like all throughout the film, Sam Neill's narrating because it's like him writing the story, because he's an author, like his character's an author, and it's like he's writing the story after the fact. And he starts by saying that this Indian satellite is decaying in orbit and is falling down to Earth, and no one knows where it's going to land. So the apocalypse might be happening soon.
Yeah, but it has a nuke on it.
It has a nuke on it, which is why it might cause some absolute. So a country, wherever it happens to land when it eventually does, is going to be devastated by this thing. So no one knows we're safe. And then there's also another element of science fiction that comes in the second half. All I'll say is it's to do with recording images via brainwaves, and that's all I'm going to say. But I will say that it does get a lot more science fiction in the second half. So
definitely,
it takes a while to get there because it's like almost 3 hours out of the movie before it really dives into that stuff. But there is even more science fiction. But I will say this: the opening 30-40 minutes, it kind of dies down once they start doing a lot of globetrotting. But I did feel like as they were going around Italy, especially, that it did kind of feel like it had like a sort of, like I say, a mild cyberpunk. It felt like we're not quite a Blade Runner yet.
The opening scene did, yeah.
Yeah, it had a tone. It has a tone that sort of gives you that. But that's the gist of the movie. At least as much as I'm willing to give you, spoiler free, and we'll go there in spoilers. But that is it, right? So 4 hours 47 minutes is what this is.
Sorry.
This is Tara's fault, but it's one where I would have wanted to watch it. I'm glad we have taken something that's challenging. I'm glad we've because I'd never heard of this movie, and it didn't do very well at the box office. It was forgotten about very quickly by most people, right? There's only places like Criterion that have kind of championed it and kind of made a point of making sure people see it, and it did. We did see it, so here it is. So I'll ask the question, Tara, how do you feel about Until the End of the World?
I'm a little mixed on it, but I think I am overall positive. I do think it's just bizarre enough to keep me interested even over the 5-hour runtime, and the little bit of sci-fi elements are interesting. It does feel like a movie that was pieced together from home movies of Wenders, and he tried to make a through line of it somehow, and the movie changes course a lot, and unfortunately it ultimately seems to be a little bit lost in its meaning, but still the 3 parts that I watched it in, I still enjoyed those 3 parts. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
What about you?
I like it. I do have critiques, and I do have this is the weirdest statement I've ever said about a movie's runtime, but there is an hour in here that I don't like that much. There's a 1 hour portion that I don't like. So as weird as this is going to be, I do think you could cut out some of this and make it a really tight 4-hour movie. And I can't believe that sentence just came out of my mouth. But
sure.
There is an hour. There's a couple of things in it that are important to the plot, but there's a 1 hour segment from about hour 3 to hour 4 ish that I'm not as keen on. Right? Maybe it's slightly before. Maybe it's more 2:40 to 3:40. But there's a segment in there where there's a lot of montages of people just dancing and just living life, and I'm this is fluff. I don't need this. It's just taking up time.
I think the movie is mostly known for its soundtrack because the director went and got I guess he wrote like 20 of his favorite artists who were working at the time to see if they would be willing to write a song or music for this film that would be like, it was a challenge though. It was like, if you'd be willing to write a song that you think you'd be making this type of music 10 years from now or something. And almost all of them said yes. So there's just a ton of music in this movie that was made specifically for the film. And because of that, it has kind of an awkward old future tone to it. And that soundtrack was really successful, even though the movie was not. And, you know, music is a huge part of the film, a huge part.
Yeah.
And
the music's good as well. For the most part, the songs are pretty good.
Yeah, for the most part, with the exception of U2, because I hate U2.
Well, I hate you too.
Huh?
I was cracking a joke.
Same joke I always hear.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm playing to the cheap seats, all right? Sometimes you have to give them the little cheap pop, okay?
I hate you too, and I'm not talking about the band this time.
I hate you too, and I hate you too. I don't actually hate you too. I think you two have some good stuff here or
They
there.
make my ears bleed.
But there's also large chunks of you two that are just completely forgettable and whatever. But anyway, like, soundtrack's good. And here's something I'm going to credit it with. I actually think this movie, despite the fact that it's got these little like silly like police cars at one point, or like, these little futuristic buggies or whatever, it does actually get a lot of things oddly right about the future.
Oh, definitely.
Like,
yeah.
Obviously things are chunkier, and you know it's kind of what they'd envisioned them as in 1990, 1991. But here's the thing: a lot of what they've got in this movie is essentially what a smartphone is now.
Yeah, or like your car navigation, or
sat nav. They literally have sat nav.
yeah.
I mean, it's a big.
Maybe that was like up and coming anyway, because the internet was around at this time.
Maybe they had some like sort of sense of where it was going, but this is like a big chunky CRT screen in the car though, and it has like,
and it tells you like where to turn, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
I use that every day.
Yeah, but it's a little bit more cartoony. There's a lot of like weird like computer tech in this movie that has like these little cartoony like elements to it on the screen.
The bear is too much.
But like, it gets a lot right to the point where I'm like, man, they really put some thought into this and like really.
Yeah, and you know,
nailed it.
It is like, it was written in like 1990 and for 1999. So I think that like Not Too Distant Future is really hard to do science fiction for. We don't really see a lot of it. Like, it's done well in Her.
Yeah, sure.
But
what's so funny about it though is that it doesn't.
It's riskier.
It doesn't nail 1999, but if they're only about 10 years off. See if you add 10 years onto it, they're actually pretty close. They're really close.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's not
kind of insane.
It's not that far off. Like, obviously things look different than what they envisioned, but the ideas are right. And I think that's harder to do almost, you know, to do like a future that we'll get to within a decade and try to predict that rather than like the really far future. Like, and you could just make things up like, oh, of course we'll be able to have ships with gravity in space, and we'll have Mars base and maybe a base on Titan or something. Stuff like that. Like the really far future you can get real creative and nuts with, and it won't really matter so much. But this type of future writing is really risky.
Yeah, I mean, it's risky. It's risky if it matters to the movie, if it's right. Like it's not that risky if it doesn't really, like, if it's a comedy, say, and they're just making fun jokes about what might come next. It doesn't matter. Even if you watch it later, it doesn't matter if they've got it all wrong. Like, it's fine. You don't really care. Like, when I'm watching Back to the Future Part 2 now, I don't like go, oh, it's bullshit that 2015 is not like this. I'm like, nah, like, they're having fun with it. They're playing up the jokes.
Cute. Like, it says a lot about the society of when it was written, where they think the future is going to go, rather than like where we actually went. You know, that's still a movie of the 80s. It's not a movie of the 2010s.
Yes.
You know, and it was never trying to be.
Yeah. In fact, Tara pointed out to me this week, you can expect this next week, but Edge of Tomorrow was actually set in 2020, so I guess we have to do it next week.
Oh, shucks.
because we
What a shame.
well, we did Blade Runner last year, and that was set in 2019, so it makes sense. We're gonna. I wonder how often we can actually do this. Like, is there something in 2021 we can do this for? Like, some movies get a future date of 2021.
I don't know.
We'll have to. Hopefully, there's like a database somewhere of like movies that are set in the future, like what those dates are, and be like, okay, we need to do these movies in these years because this is just perfect. Obviously, for stuff that's like, I mean, stuff like Star Trek and Alien, which is like 2250, like, oh, we're not gonna live to then, so it's fine. We'll just do them whenever. But anything,
We don't know. Maybe we'll have like our consciousness will be in the computer and we'll just make vlogs forever. No.
Are you really that upset at the thought of eternity talking movies with me? How dare you?
Is this really my future?
Yes, it is. We get
This
this.
is how I die.
Much like this movie, we're getting the future right. This is the future. This.
Oh boy. I brought this on myself.
Yes. You literally did with this movie, actually. I hate to use the phrase you asked for it, but you literally asked for it.
I did. I said, let's do this one.
Yes. One might even say pleaded.
I was just scrolling through the app and I said, hey, Criterion added a new sci-fi. There's really not a lot of Criterion sci-fi movies.
There's not. Most of them are Godzilla movies.
Yeah, like 80% of them.
So we talked about the future-y elements, and obviously we have to mention the cast. We have William Hurt and we have Sam Neill. Of course, the lead of the film, Claire, is someone who I recognise because she's in Wings of Desire. She's the lead lady in that movie as well.
Is that a trapeze movie? Movie about trapeze artist?
I mean, she is technically that, but it's not really what the focus of the movie's about. But there's definitely scenes of her doing that.
Okay. I was trying to think if I had seen the movie before.
It's like half black and white and half in color.
I've definitely seen a movie about trapeze artists, but I was a kid when I watched it. And I wasn't sure if that was it or not.
Well, it's about an angel who wants to become human.
Yes, it's like a Meet Joe Black situation.
I've never seen Meet Joe Black, but I'll take your word for it.
Oh, it's so good. It's like 4 hours, but it's 4 hours of Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins, and I love it.
I'm not ready for another 4-hour movie, Tara. I need time to heal.
It's not science fiction. Don't worry.
Look, long movies that are over 3 hours are like relationships. You need time to heal when one ends, right? You can't just go back into another one. You need time to heal.
All TV shows are basically long movies.
No, they're in chapters. You can split them up and you can, consume them in a way that suits you. But anyway, the actress who plays Claire, which is the point I was trying to get at before Tara so rudely tangented us into Meet Mr. Joe. Solveig
Good movie.
Dommartin is the name of the actress, who sadly passed away quite young. She was in her 40s when she died, in the 2000s.
It's sad.
Yeah, I was looking up some of the actors.
She's really great in this movie. She has like this bohemian, like carefree, very what I think of French attitude. And she's easy to fall in love with in the movie. Like she's really great. She has that youthful spirit, and I think I don't know if I've ever seen her in anything else. I don't think I've seen Wings of Desire, so it's on my list though. I'll check it out along with Paris, Texas. Is she in that one?
She's not in that one, but Harry Dean Stanton's in that one, though.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, it's a major selling point.
Yeah, he's a good actor.
He's fantastic in that movie as well.
He's great in Big Love with Bill Paxton, another great actor. And find out our review of Bill Paxton's movie Edge of Tomorrow. Maybe next week.
I think it's pretty definite next week. I think we've decided on it.
Yes.
That's how we're going to recuperate from this. That and Transfers 3, which we're doing for Patreon.
Yeah, 2 easy movies.
Yeah. Transfers 3, 80 minutes long, perfect. We could watch that 3 times in the space that it took us to watch this movie.
Yep.
So, yes. No, she's very good. I mean, as much as obviously she's not the big name in the movie, she is actually the best performer in the movie, I think, in terms of like she does hold the whole thing together. Her attitude and the way she does become kind of passionate about this does work. The way she like walks into a room, the way she walks into anywhere really, every time she catches up with William Hurt, and the way she kind of reveals herself to him, being behind him or sitting down at the table, or showing up at wherever he is. Like every single time, it's kind of exciting to watch his reaction because she's so cocky about it. She's like, "No, I found you again." That stuff's really entertaining. So no, she's great, and I'd say that what's bizarre about this movie is that the characters do end all up being very likable, even the ones you think aren't going to be likable early on. By the time you get like halfway through the movie, in that last half, like you're kind of liking all of them. Like they all kind of become likable. It's kind of neat.
I think it's her. I think her like attitude is infectious to them. Like they all long to be a bit like her. And it's easy to see why. She just has a passion for things, and she sees like beauty in things that people don't notice. She has a real like just this bohemian, almost hippie-like style. And I think it is infectious. I think the people, like even the ones who are like in love with her, are not like upset that she's with or in love with somebody else. Even they're just like, just let me be close to you. I just need that kind of positivity around me, because it makes me better. Yeah, kind of get that vibe.
So no, she's very good. The movie, like I think the movie is mostly pretty great. I think it channels a specific tone that I associate with Wenders, especially Wings of Desire. I was getting maybe more of that than I was Paris, Texas, but I love that movie too. I don't love it as much as Paris, Texas, but I do love it too. And like the weird tone of this carefree, like the world might be ending soon, so why not just chase after things that we want? It's kind of an interesting vibe that it gives off, and I like that a lot in the first half of the movie. I do like the science fiction element that it introduces in the back half. Unfortunately, it's kind of hampered because as it's starting to be introduced, it's when you get that hour of like mostly wasting time as well to go along with it. But once it really gets going with that stuff, I also like that too.
I like it too, but it doesn't feel like it veers like so far off track from what we've been watching a bit. Like it's like, okay, now this part is being introduced, and like I could see where there's connections to everything that we've seen beforehand to it, but it feels added on, and it feels
I will try and justify it for you, but I can't do it without spoilers. So
right, I understand. I mean, and I understand the connections like to the like everything that we've seen so far in technology and blah blah blah, but it just feels like the movie has like a definitive ending. Oh, and then there's another hour, and it has this element added to it. And I don't know. It just seems like the movie it doesn't have a traditional storytelling technique. So I keep trying to find it in there, but it's not there, and I need to let it go.
Let it go.
It's art house,
Oh, it's definitely art house. It's an auteur's film.
It's 5 hours of art house, so just let it go.
And of that,
be more like Claire.
Of that 4 hours 47 minutes, I really like about 3 hours and 40 minutes of it. Like, and not the first 3 hours and 40 minutes. Like I say, it's an hour kind of in the sort of start of the second half, give or take, is kind of where I think that the pacing kind of hit me, and it felt like it was wasting time. But overall, I like it a lot. It is going to be a bit of a it's a big choice to make to rewatch this movie. The bizarre thing is, though, I kind of want to someday, because I feel like
there isn't any part that I feel like isn't rewatchable, or like it's still like just an attitude. Like the whole movie is just like I don't know, like an aura.
Well, yeah, but the point I'm getting at, though, is I think it actually will play even better in a rewatch, bizarrely, because I think all the stuff in the first half will be enriched knowing where it goes. I think the themes of how all those things connect actually will play even better when you know what's coming. But it's such a big task. It's such a big thing to like say, hey, I'm going to rewatch this 4 hours and 48 minute movie again. Like it's such a big ask.
I know. There's some books that I've never gotten to just because I know they're going to be great, but there's so many pages. And if I don't start it, then I don't have to read it all. But I know it'll be worth it if I get through it all. It's just intimidating.
Yes. Is there anything else? What were you going to say? You were going to say something before.
Oh, yeah. Do we think that William Hurt is a good actor.
He's very one note, but
Yes.
he's likable in his one noteness.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I'll put it this way. Maybe likable is not the right word, but he does carry a presence with him. He has presence.
I don't know. I'm starting to doubt. Like, there are moments where I'm just like, oh, he's great. And then I'm like, there are other moments where I'm just like, is he though? Like, maybe I just think he's great because he's been around for a while, and maybe he's great when he's older. But like these other movies we've been watching him in, like,
Well,
he's just kind of okay. He's super dull.
Clearly, the only way to settle this is to review the Lost in Space movie as soon as possible.
Oh, I love that movie. Well, I loved it when it came out.
Yeah, Love's a bit of a weird.
I know I hate the monkey. The CGI monkey is Space Monkey is pretty.
That
awful.
movie is definitely not well regarded. I've not seen it since I was a kid, but
It's got our boy from Chernobyl in it though.
has a lot. That's Gary Oldman in it as well. Gary Oldman's a great actor, but
He is.
he's also been in a lot of shit. So
But the Chernobyl guy, like, I don't see him in very many things. What is the cost of lies?
oh, it's Jared Harris. Why did I know Jared Harris is there?
I forgot. Like, I have Kelly Bundy syndrome. We've gone over this before. I learned something new. Something old has to go.
Yeah, she has. So it's
Limited space in here.
somehow it's always the things that I've told you that seem to be the stuff that gets let go. I've noticed that a little bit.
Weird.
Mm-hmm.
I have to make room for all the Star Trek knowledge.
It's also vital. Must be held on to. Yeah, that may be such a product of the 90s, or the end of the 90s, start of the 2000s, because like Heather Graham and Matt LeBlanc are in that movie, and it's like, yeah, this is such a time. This is such a specific point in time.
Yeah.
This was right before Austin Powers 2, where she probably had her biggest like role of the and yes, I know
Not Boogie Nights?
Oh, I've not seen Boogie Nights. I'll take your word. I mean, I guess that one counts, yeah. But like, I've never seen it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Boogie Nights is where the world went, who is that?
Well, to be fair, she was in Twin Peaks long before these movies, but obviously she's not as remembered for that.
Isn't she a child?
Nah, she's like 18, 19 in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, she's like 30 by the time we get to 2000, I think. So, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, William Hurt, I think he's likable. He's got presence at least, so like
I don't know. I think he's I guess maybe I'm being too hard on him. Like, he definitely plays a certain type of person that, you know, it exists. Like, there are some people out there who are just kind of dull and one note, but I think I see why she's drawn and attracted to his mystery because of his introduction. Mm-hmm. But I don't see how he doesn't have charisma or anything. Like, in their relationship together, I buy because of her, but not because of him. You know?
Yeah, that's fair. He's also notably the one who she's not like, everyone else kind of wants to be around her. He's the one who keeps running away. So I think part of the appeal is that, you know, the one thing you can't have. Sure. The one thing you're told you can't have is the one thing that you want the most. Like,
of course,
that makes some sense to me.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I am being too hard on William Hurt.
Yeah, this is his third movie on this show.
Yeah, we did Dark City and we did Altered States, and I think I don't like the way he kisses. It comes off as kind of aggressive, like, not that he's like hurting her, but just like he's doing it wrong.
He's an aggressive kisser.
It's a weird critique, but it seemed that way in Altered States, and it seems that way in this movie.
I wonder if he actually kisses like that in real life, or if it's just like he thinks this is a dramatic kiss. So this is what he does in the movies. He thinks
this is what passion looks like in his, but it comes off too strong. Like, whoa, slow down.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's a fine kisser.
I'm not willing to test it out, but I'm going to take that bullet for the team, but yeah, I think we'll get spoilers then. I think we'll give the spoilers so we can actually start talking about what the movie has in it, in terms of the plot and where it goes and some of the big themes and ideas that it introduces. So I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, Tyler Hess, and Talking Superman. Thank you to you guys. That means they're all patrons at the $20 or above tiers, but you don't have to be a patron at that high a tier, do you, Tara?
Why no? You can check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/MildFuzzTV, and donating as little as $1 per month will get you bonus episodes of The Ace. You can follow along the Transfer Saga with Peter and myself and the adventures of Jack Death and Helen Hunt and see the continuing adventures of that. And yeah, you'll get a bunch of other things that we have uploaded, like Time Cop, Judge Dredd, some others I've forgotten. And there's a whole catalog of horror films as well, without myself, but that's all right. They're still pretty fun to watch or listen to. Yeah, so go check it out. Thank you.
Beautiful. See the way you say thank you at the end of that, because I've noticed this becoming more and more of a thing, is the way you say thank you. It kind of sounds like you're assuming someone's saying that was great, Tara. You're like, thank you.
It's what I hear. I hear it in my head. Is no one saying it?
Yes, and it's worth mentioning the February bonus episode of this show.
A short month.
Yeah. Even though it's a longer February than most years, but because of leap year, if anyone didn't know.
By a day.
Yes, but the February bonus episode is a little bit late, and it will actually be in the first couple of days of March. And this is also because of this movie being so long that we had to push this episode back, because we were going to do the bonus movie after this movie. All right then, so we have 4 hours and 47 minutes of content to divulge here, so I won't necessarily go as beat for beat as I typically do, because we'd be here all day. And also, the truth is that when a movie's 5 hours long, it's actually harder to take in as many remember all the details, retain it all in the same way as a 2-hour movie. It just isn't as possible. So we'll probably take it sort of in chunks. The first chunk being, I described the first chunk being kind of the introduction. I mean, obviously, but like what I mean by that is where she kind of wakes up on her own, Claire that is, and she just goes on her drive on her own. She's driving, because I actually thought, I can see how this movie's going to be 5 hours, because there was quite a montage here at the start of her just driving, listening to music, and I thought, is that why this is 5 hours long? There's going to be this all through the movie of like just these montages of people, and that's not true. Once it starts getting into the plot, it does kind of start being a bit more like a movie. That's fine. And to its credit, it's not like it was an absurd amount of time. It was just because I knew how long the movie was. I went, is this how we do it? Is there's going to be a lot of this, a lot of soaking in the atmosphere? Which, to be fair, the atmosphere that's there is really good. Like, it actually is quite effective.
I agree.
And there's a nice little.
I even enjoyed the driving.
Yeah, there's a nice little twist actually when she eventually gets back to her ex-boyfriend Sam Neill, Eugene, and she like pulls off the what is revealed to be a wig, and like reveals the curly blonde hair, and I went, look at that, the M. Night Shyamalan my ass. I mean, not really, it's not that bit of a twist, but
I'm really a blonde. And then takes off, hair goes.
Yeah, she's like a reverse Black Canary.
Okay.
That landed with such a thud. I love it. So yeah, that's just, so she's driving along and she gets so bored because the highways are all jammed because of the satellite thing that's going to happen soon. Now, my only critique, I guess, and it's not really a critique because I don't really like care about it, but I will say that I do think the one unrealistic part, I guess, of the movie for me is that, like, how long is this satellite taking to like come through orbit? Like, I mean, maybe there is a reason for this. Maybe there's someone can explain to me the scientific reason is why it's taking so long. But like, I don't
know what you're asking for, but okay.
Yeah, but I have been so trained that something falling through orbit, if it's falling through orbit, especially to a degree where they don't know where it's going to land, like how exactly is it? Maybe it's doing something where it's kind of, I don't know, but I just don't understand why it was like, because it's literally weeks pass. Weeks pass while this thing's still coming through orbit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's only knocked off its orbit slightly, and it's enough for it to be drawn in real slow. I don't know.
It's just deteriorating slightly, yes. But I mean, it's fine. Whatever. Hell, this could be completely accurate. Maybe this is just something that I don't understand, and that's fine.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess just other movies have trained me to see things coming through the orbit and like.
Yeah, we watch a lot of action movies.
Yeah, so. But that could just be movies that have done that to me, so it's
big
fine.
Ball of flame coming through the sky of right over like San Francisco or New York City.
So, but she basically goes, "Oh, I'm fed up with this." So, I mean, she actually doesn't have any dialogue yet. But I love that there's almost all in the narration at the start. There's no dialogue from Claire until a little bit later, because even though this sounds like it's right next, there's a lot of driving before we get to this, where she runs into Chico and his buddy, who it turns out are bank robbers.
She literally runs into them.
Yes, well, he throws out his beer bottle and it hits her windshield, and then she's, not intentionally, but the impact kind of makes her swerve into him, and then so
it destroys her windshield entirely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she the car like rolls over. Like it's a really good like crash scene.
She gets out and she sort of stumbles over to complain and like find out what's going on. And Chico, the sort of main one of the two who we see a lot of in the movie, he doesn't even listen to it at first. He just walks off into the desert and goes for a piss.
Yeah, he's real upset.
Yeah. But everyone's really nice to each other. Because they only have one functioning car now, they take her to a motel or whatever, and when she finds out what they've done, like he offers her like a job, like, hey, we need to he would just rob this bank, like how about you take the money for us to this address, and like she doesn't know this, but he's actually got like a tracker in the bag just in case she double crosses them. But it's like, no, if you take this money and like hide it for us, we'll give you a third. Like you can have a third of it.
Yeah, because they're kind of stuck where they are. They only have the one car and it's hers.
Yeah, so she takes it and she and it's actually on her way to France, because she used to live in Paris with Sam Neill. She runs into William Hurt, who's like on the payphone next to her, but I mean like video phones though.
They have this weird like elephant trunk thing that comes out that you put your ear against, and then there's a screen on there. They're funny looking, but it's all right. It's not too far off from what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean we're actually having a video call around the world right now, so I mean
just without the elephant trunk.
Yeah, I mean I could hold this up to my ear, I suppose. If that would, the audio people got nothing out of that. The audio people didn't even get the visual joke that I was going for. But she runs into him, and he sort of hightails out there after like a brief interaction, and then this bounty hunter / PI dude comes up, Bert his name is, and he's asking questions, and she kind of liked him enough to lie for him. Especially since she kind of notices that he's got a gun, like he's got like a holster when he's like when he sort of like opens his jacket for something, she sees the gun, and because of that, like she like goes to find him. Actually, he gets in her car, right?
Yeah, he gets in her car.
Yeah,
and she said, "Hey, someone's looking for you."
Yes, yes. So she agrees to like travel with him to Paris. And they're sort of together, and they have to do a little pretending at one point because the cops in the little futuristic buggies come up and pull them over, and he finds out about the money in the bag, and she like finds out that he does have a wife and son, which is technically true, but they're separated. He's not with them anymore. And yeah, so there's a lot of setup here, and there's a little bit of flirtation. But when he leaves her in Paris, like she doesn't find out until she gets back to Sam Neill's place and like unloads the money that there's a note saying "I owe you" because he's taken a couple of wads of cash, and Sam Neill's like, well, I mean, can you really be mad at someone for stealing your stolen money? Like, is that
like really... what do you do? Call the cops?
Yeah, so they count it all and all the rest of it. I think Sam Neill's like character is kind of interesting to me for this like next portion of the movie, because he's still in love with her, right? And he feels guilty about what he did because he had sex with her best friend. And
pretty rude. And
her attitude towards this, like later on when she talks to him about it, is that like she still loves him and she still wants him in her life, but that kind of ruined any possibility of this ever being a romantic relationship like that. I mean,
yeah, and we see her with her friend later on who like apologizes to her for it. It's like, I don't know what happened, and it was also fast or whatever, and she's like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. Like,
yeah, very civil.
we'll be okay. Like, it's certainly not your fault, and like she has no blame towards her at all. She does sort of blame him because he's in the relationship with her. Should have known better.
Yeah, characters in this movie are very civil to each other in almost every circumstance, which is kind of weird, but it gives it this kind of charm as well at the same time. But like, I think they even have sex actually. I mean, we don't see it, but they sort of like, we see them in bed, like, you know, under the sheets together. So it's, you know, it's presumed that they probably did, but it's kind of like a last hurrah, I guess. But it's after this where, you know,
maybe it's a no hard feelings sex.
Yeah, but he kind of like, you know, says, who's this guy you're obsessed with, and like, this is a bad idea, all these things, and like, and she insisting she's going to go after him, and she, you know, she does, and he kind of ends up following her, and like that's kind of the story of the movie, is that he's following in pursuit, and he's chasing after her, but he's writing the story as he's going, and obviously they're eventually all together at one point, but this is actually one of the first big things I want to bring up into work. So I actually kind of want to skip to the ending here, because I kind of want to, as we go through the movie, talk about how stuff relates to where it goes. Because it's going to be really awkward to get to the end and have to come back and say, hey, this bit and this bit and this bit and how it all. So the big science fiction thing that happens towards the end of the movie, what William Hurt's actually doing, the big mystery, because there's a lot of like theorization throughout the film, like, is he like a spy? Is he on the run because he stole something? Is, you know, all these different things. And what he's actually doing is that he's going around the world with this special like VR style camera, and it's this special technology that his father, who's played by Max von Sydow, who we meet later in the movie. Like, I knew
way later.
Yeah, once
like
we get
hour
to
3.
Yeah, 3 hour mark, we get to meet him. But like, he's going to remember this special camera that's his father, who's this big scientist, this big shot, who's working in Australia in like this secret lab to develop this thing that can basically record images that the blind can see, right? It's this idea of like taking these images, it sort of detects the brainwaves of the person seeing them, so that the person has to wear these when they're taking the photos, or the video rather, and then it can be transmitted later into a blind person, which is his father's wife, his mum, right? I'll try to think how to say that the most succinct way possible, but yeah, his mum's blind, and this is for her. So that's why, and the reason why he's being chased, why there's like people after him, is because the US government want this technology because of all the nefarious things they may be able to do with it. And that's why.
And the guy that's chasing after him, the guy specifically, what was his name? Burke or something?
Burke.
He is working for his dad. So he's trying to track him down to get this technology back to his father. Yes.
So you've got that. And then when she can't find him at first, she actually gets the PI from Berlin. Because she does get to the Berlin place on her own by overhearing Bert on the phone at one point and like sort of like figuring things out. But she you know, gets ditched by him again because they arrange to meet each other later, and then he doesn't show up. Right, that's basically what happens. But then the chase keeps going. But anyway, so at the end of the movie, the big thing is this is for the mum, right? And they try a couple of times, like the person who actually took the video has to kind of like re-experience it as they look at the video, so that they can then stream the brain waves into the cortex of the blind person. You know, fun science fiction ideas. It really, you know, they're in a lab at this point. It's starting to feel more sci-fi, and we all these like distorted like images that they make. It was actually giving me like almost Altered States vibes, the way it was kind of like looking distorted and like all that stuff, and it looked really cool. And eventually, because eventually in the movie, when Claire does actually end up joining Trevor, who we find out is really called Sam, when she joins Sam permanently and they actually sort of bond and stick together, which is when I said the movie was ending Act 1. That's at the hour 50 mark. When he accepts her as like a permanent companion, like she ends up...
That happens in like Tokyo, I think.
Yes, that happens in Japan. Like... That's the point in the movie where this is taking a toll on him. Like, it takes a toll on the person who's like taking the video. So she actually does one of them for him. She like, because he's going around and getting all the family members that she's never seen, like, you know, his siblings, old family friends of the mum, like all these people she's never been able to see because she's been blind since she was a child, and all of his siblings as well, of course. Like, you know, him and his like sister who their mum's never seen. She's never seen her kids. She was always blind.
Yeah, or her grandkids. Like, they show off the grandkids too.
So they succeed in doing this, and the big spoiler, which I think Tara is what you were saying when you said that it has a natural endpoint, is that they kind of achieved this. She gets to see her kids for the first time, and then she dies, and we have this big funeral sort of procession, and they bury her. But we have this added like segment, this extra hour, 40 minutes, whatever it is, at the end, where it introduces this new idea where Max von Sydow has this plan. He's like, hey, we can take images from brainwaves here. Does that mean we can take images from stuff that's already in the brain, meaning your dreams? Can we look at dreams? And he's able to accomplish it. You know, he does this to himself, and then Sam does it, and hey Claire, maybe you should do this. And they make a big point throughout the movie that Claire doesn't really sleep, and part of the reason why she doesn't sleep because she doesn't like her dreams. And so she does it as well, and she sees like this image of herself, and how it's kind of weird. Most people don't see themselves when they dream. You know, they everything's first person or whatever. You don't really see yourself. But she does see herself, and the last like half hour of the movie is basically them all becoming addicted to the images of their dreams. Like they don't even want to do anything else. All they want to do is like obsess about their dreams. It's like a literal drug.
It's like physically taking a toll on them. Yeah, and to quit it, they all become like mindless zombies and forget about the natural world. And to quit
it, they do literally have to go cold turkey. She's locked in a cage for like days. To get over it. Sam's like out in the outback, just kind of like wandering and eventually like drawing things, and he eventually gets over it. It's a very kind of like drug thing, but it's not about drugs, but it uses it as an addiction. So essentially what this movie I think is about, and we've encountered this theme before in some ways, is the danger of nostalgia and
I was getting Watchmen vibes.
And the poison of the image. And I think the reason why this relates to a lot of the first chunk of the movie is that Claire never thinks about the past. Claire is always moving forward, and she's this adventurous person, and she's willing to keep going. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to get all this stuff explained just now is because this stuff with Sam Neill, with Eugene, like he immediately wants to cling onto this relationship. He wants her back, and for the next chunk of the movie when he's chasing her around, he thinks it's kind of hopeless, but he still kind of wants to win her back, and he wants to kind of like somehow convince her that she should be with him. And he does eventually give it up, but what's interesting about it is that he gives it up because she eventually kind of like, through her actions and through how she is with him, because she doesn't treat him horribly, she's still very nice, she still hugs him when she sees him, she still treats him like someone she cares about in her life. She essentially influences him to let go of this past that he can't have anymore. She convinces him to, like, in a natural way where it's healthy, where he doesn't seem upset about it, to let go of this past that he can't have and not obsess over the nostalgia. And she's so about looking for these adventurous new things. And we talked about how she is this influence in everyone around her. And that last chunk of the movie, it kills that dead. In fact, all of these characters we're talking about end up in Australia with them, because that's when the satellite goes down, and they're not even sure if the rest of the world still exists. They're in this like secluded little place where the lab is, and the world might have ended. We might be on our own, and for a large part of the movie they think that's maybe the case. And that's another part of the sci-fi, of course, is that we might be in a post-apocalyptic world now. We don't know. So really fun idea, but they're all together. They become this happy family of friends who all live together, and even the characters who have been kind of like antagonistic, like Winter, the PI, like Bert, they all become part of this family. And the moment they split up, the moment they all decide to leave, except Sam Neill, is when they all start becoming obsessed with the dreams, and that she's no longer this bastion of like moving forward and like solving things in the world and chasing new things. She becomes obsessed with this image of her past. She becomes obsessed with something that she can't quite explain. And for her, it's loneliness. For the father, it's the sadness of his wife and all that. And for Bert, it's because he can't see his son anymore, and that's what he becomes obsessed with. It actually made me think a lot of that Black Mirror episode.
Oh my god!
What?
You've been going for so long.
I'm sorry, but I had a big point to make. Okay, I'm sorry, but it made me think of that Black Mirror episode and the entire history of you a little bit. But that's okay. There you go. Your thoughts on my thesis.
Jeez, where to start? You just went through like 5 hours of movie.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well, yes, that was very well thought out and very well explained. And Wenders would be very proud.
You're not reviewing my. I'm asking, what do you think about that read? Did you? I mean,
Yeah, I definitely picked up on people getting lost in nostalgia, and it was hard not to see them all glued to their tiny devices and their screens and ignoring everything. Like the whole movie has been about her admiring the world and every place that she goes to, and it takes the time and care to actually go to these places. And the movie's very beautiful, like it's a beautifully shot film, and you really do admire every place that they go to and how different it is, and how like the natural beauty of the people and the land and the architecture and the culture comes through. But in here they are, like, just ignoring that huge part of their lives that they that they've all admired in Claire, and instead are just glued to their devices and are stuck in something that they think feels just as good, the nostalgia, or getting lost in this in what technology can give them. And because of that, they've lost the thing that they've maybe took for granted.
Yeah, what's interesting about it though is I don't necessarily think, because I think there's a counterpoint to it in the movie as well, where like Sam Neill finishes the novel he's writing, right, the book about this, and he gives it to Claire, and as she's going through cold turkey, and she reads it, and she's kind of better by the time she finishes it. And I think what it's kind of saying is that it's not that, like, because I think she was kind of the extreme end of the equation, where she was not even thinking about her past at all, to an unhealthy degree, right? As much as they all admire this in her, she is kind of the extreme. And I think the idea that, like, she becomes obsessed with this image, but actually having a thought out process, this written document of everything, still helped her process. Like, she was avoiding the past before, and then she became obsessed by it. And so I think there's like a balance that the movie's trying to get across, where it's like, no, you have to still understand your past and be able to move on from it. You can't just ignore it. It has to be a part of you, but you don't obsess over it either and constantly chase it again. Like, you can move on to new things. So I think there's that element to it. There's also maybe a slight element to the fact that Sydow's wife, William Hurt's mum, she, like, when we hear her talking about the images she's seen for the first time, is that she doesn't actually necessarily love them. Like, she's actually, like, the world's actually a lot darker, and like it's not as, like, perfect as she'd pictured in her mind. It kind of ruined the illusion of what she thought the world was.
Yeah, she does have. Well, also the world is going through this constant fear of it ending, and like everyone seems to be sad. Like, even the people they interview, like, are they look sad, and maybe they're sad because they think, or they know that she's dying, or that they're sad for her because she's never seen anything. But like it does come off as like she doesn't really. I don't know if she's better off for seeing the people that she loves. She even tells Sydow that I don't need to see your face. Like, I know you're beautiful. I know what you look like, because she's been with him for so long, and she has an image of him, and she's touched him, and she's known him for so long.
Yeah,
she has.
Max von Sydow, by the way. Max von Sydow, by the way, who is already an old man in this movie and is still alive and kicking today. Just want to point that out.
Still looks the same.
Yeah, he still does. Actually, I think it's worth mentioning as well the correlation of like both her husband and her son obsessing over her getting to see images that she doesn't necessarily feel that she needs, and they're obsessed about this. And then once she's gone, they obsess over seeing images themselves of something they've never seen, right? Of these dreams that they've never remembered, or
but they get addicted to it.
Yeah. So, but the idea that they were already addicted before for her sake, they were already addicted to like solving this for her when it was something she didn't really need. I think there's something to be said there, and this.
I like the detail of the technology, that it's not just an image that they're trying to project into her head. It has to also be a feeling. Like the memory has to just be emotional too. And that's why, like, Claire's so good at it. Like, they call her a natural. Like, no one else is able to do it because they're trying to science the shit out of it, Yeah. but Claire goes in and she's like, oh, I understand feeling. I know empathy. I know sadness and happiness. Like, she's the free spirit. Of course she's good at that. And, I just like that extra detail. And, of course, Claire, like, fits right in.
Yeah, no, I mean, these elements are all really good, and like, it feels like such an extra segment to the movie, but I actually think it does kind of take everything the movie did up until that point and make it like have kind of a point, I suppose, beyond just the actual plot of like getting the images to the mum and like having her see for the first time. Because I think if it just ended there, like, it wouldn't really be saying anything that much, really. It would just be kind of like, okay, they've completed their task, that was their goal, but it doesn't really say something about what they were doing until this last section. And how this was kind of like, it's like they had this goal in mind, but it was actually the journey along the way that gave them all this adventure, that gave them all this growing, and Claire was the only one who was just doing it for that sake. Everyone else had like a goal in mind, and because she had the goal of him, but like for her it was more of just the adventure itself, whereas for everyone else it was about chasing something in particular.
Yeah, I mean, when the adventure was over and everybody was separating because of they were all stuck on this technology, and she leaves them behind. Like, it's over, and that she's leaving that part of her behind too.
For the record, it's not everyone. It's only her, William Hurt.
After everybody leaves, and those who are left, it's her and Sam and Sydow.
Yeah, well, I'm just specifying that though because like, I just make it clear that Winter and Bert leave because they find out, like, they get like a radio transmission that confirms that the rest of the world is still living, like it's still there. The world didn't die.
The satellite knocked out like the ability to pick up on some radio signals. So, and because they're on an island.
Well, I mean, it's set off
in the outback.
It's set off a nuclear EMP, which we find out in a really kind of exciting scene because like they're in a plane, like they're in Australia already, and they've like got a plane together to like fly to where they're going, and it basically like it knocks out the plane engine like while they're in the air, so you actually just sort of do
just gliding,
just a glide landing, and
it's actually a very beautiful scene too, the way it's shot.
I think the whole movie's beautiful. There's so much stuff.
The movie's gorgeous.
Like even just like her walking through like streets and stuff, it just looks really great. And they shot this in all these real locations, and you can tell it feels so authentic. And even when they're doing like extra little bits to make it look like it's the future, it still feels like this authentic. Just like
it's weird to say this, but it's almost like the movie is shot with like an optimistic lens. Everything is beautiful, and you don't really, I don't know, it's like watching a National Geographic show or something for all these places, but with a storyline through it.
But I think this is the key thing, though, is that it's beautiful until they get to that lab, and then all of a sudden they're in the lab, and it's kind of just, drab and boring and metallic and, all these things.
Yeah, I mean, there are still parts, though, that are like pretty nice, like, I mean, they're always partying and stuff and making music together. And
no, that's outside. I mean, literally inside the lab. Like, everything's beautiful until you get into that room, and that's where. That's where
sterile, and, like, covered in poly and metal.
But importantly, though, that's where when the three characters who get addicted to the dreams and the images from the dreams, that's where they kind of hang out. They just kind of start sleeping in there. There's literally sleeping bags on the floor. They're ignoring the world. They don't even go outside. They're just in there, and that's it. So again, and it's funny because like you could almost read this as like some sort of like anti-film and TV message, but it's obviously it's a director who obviously loves his job and loves making movies, so it's not.
Well, it's hard not to watch this now and just see people, addicted to their cell phones.
Yeah.
Not wanting to go out of it. That's also a very Black Mirror-y comparison.
Which makes this, again, we talk about this movie got so many things right. Like, if you want to just take that simple idea of people just staring at their phones too much and being obsessed with like getting recognition on their phones, like it's very much kind of like a prelude to that. And then on top of that, there's obviously some philosophical talk about how like seeing like your dream that's came from within inside you is kind of like seeing like your own god, because it's like something that's like you're not controlling it, it's just in there, like it's just something your mind is doing.
It's not supposed to be something you can see, like it's just it's a thing that your brain does unconsciously, like literally.
I also kind of, and this kind of goes as well what I was saying before, how the first half of the movie is so free-spirited and so adventurous that I almost took it like part of the reason why they got addicted was not just because they were seeing things like like William Hurt seeing his son again and stuff like that, but also because it felt like okay, these dreams must be what I really want deep inside. So they become addicted to this idea of like, oh, there's a plan.
Trying to decipher him.
There's a roadmap of what I'm supposed to do, rather than just doing things that feel right. And they become obsessed with the idea that let's say this is their god. It's the obsession of there's a god to tell me what to do. My dreams will tell me what to do, and they're addicted to that idea. And that's also a nice little read in the movie. Where that completely makes them reliant on it and makes them shut down. If you rely on someone else to like make all your choices for you, then you know, that's it. So
I don't think that I would ever get addicted to that.
Sure.
I don't think I dream.
I rarely remember my dreams, but I think everyone does dream. You just don't remember them. There's a difference.
That's what I've heard, but I never dream. Like I dream when I wake up from an alarm and fall back asleep.
Yes.
Then I start dreaming.
No,
but then I know that I'm dreaming and I know I'm late and I'll wake myself up.
That's when I remember my dreams typically, is when I've sort of woken up already and sort of drift back off.
Or if I've had a nightmare that I've had before. Then I remember it.
Okay, well that's definitely dreaming now.
Yeah. But I think because that has such an emotional response.
Yes.
And there's something kind of familiar before. Do you ever have like recurring nightmares?
No. Never. Oh, so the one thing I will say is that sometimes I feel like my dreams have continuity, like
the Twilight Zone episode you hate.
Like I feel like it feels like I've been here before, and like there's like a backstory that I just understand, even though like there isn't. Like it's just weird.
Yeah.
But anyway,
maybe that's why dreams are so tempting in this movie, because there's something there that's familiar.
Yeah, they're usually just really
I know this
random.
world.
Like if anything, like the most unrealistic thing about dreams in movies is, you know, William Hurt's dreaming about his dead, or not his dead son, sorry, his son who he can't see anymore. Like I'm like, yeah, none of my dreams are like meaningful things about people I know. It's all, I mean, some people might be there, but it's always something really random.
I mean, sometimes, yeah, I'll be like in my elementary school, surrounded by my high school friends, and like, but we're all 30.
I mean, hell, the last dream I remember, I'm pretty sure like I was in a version of a city but it was the name of a city I've been to but didn't look anything like it, and then I was in a hostage situation, and like,
right, but in your mind you're like, this makes sense.
Yeah, but the weird thing is I don't remember being scared in the hostage situation. I remember just being like, well, I'm in a hostage, this is inconvenient, I'll have to like message someone and say I'm going to be late.
Every new detail that comes up is like, of course, the right thing that happened and makes sense, and was always like that, who knows.
Yeah, it's weird. It's I don't know, but no, like, and that's not to belittle any of the ideas this movie has about dreams, because they're actually all very interesting.
Yeah, and I think you know, they did a decent job of making the footage of the dreams look, you know, unusual, like something technology is trying to extrapolate, but is not quite able to make a crystal clear image, because dreams aren't really that way. So yeah.
It's a really good visual, I think. Like I say, when they get to the lab, right? When when I say there's a couple of important plot points in the hour that I don't like that much, I think the first couple of times they try with the mum to like get her to see things, they're important scenes, right? And they're in that hour, but everything else around them is just them like dancing and partying and like just playing music, and I'm like, I get that you're showing that they're having like a happy like life here, but like one little montage would have done this. I don't need this to be like 40 minutes of of a section of the movie. It is
interesting to see all these characters from Claire's like adventure just all in one place, and like just starting a jam band together. Why not?
Yeah, because Chico loves drumming. He's a drummer, and you know, we've glossed over some of the adventure here, like, you know, like Chico showing up to help them at one point, and how she kind of finds him a couple of different times, and or how even when they first get to Australia, like both Eugene and Sam get thrown in jail for a night because they have a fist fight, because basically Eugene can't help himself but punch him for all the danger he's put Claire in, or the fact that after they get off the plane, Bert actually handcuffed Claire to the door, so they have to actually carry the door of the plane with them for like miles and miles.
That was a fun note.
Yeah. My favorite part of it though is when they finally get to like a place with like bolt cutters so they could cut it off. They like he just starts slamming it on the ground and jumping on it because he's so happy to finally not have to carry it anymore.
What detail that made me laugh in the was early on in the film when she's in the car with William Hurt, and they have these like their music tracks are like on these little credit card looking things, which it's fine, but like he's like, hey, you mind if I put some music on? And she's like, sure. And he puts on this like pygmy tribe children singing something. And she goes, oh, it's beautiful. I'm like, damn, I can't believe that worked. Let me put on some music, baby. Like he definitely chose that song to make her not interested in him, and somehow the opposite effect happened.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning he's willing to he keeps running away from her like over and over again, and the time she actually catches up with him and he sort of lets her stay is when he's actually essentially completely blind himself from using the device to take the videos.
He's just blind and playing pachinko in Tokyo.
And she actually has to help him, and there is something to be said here about him becoming so vulnerable that he needs her to take care of him for a little bit, and how that kind of makes them bond. And maybe that even like kind of relates to like how he sees his parents' relationship, because obviously
he's gone blind like his mom.
Yeah, his father lately probably helped take care of her for a long, her whole life, from when he met her. I mean, I'm sure she's fully independent, growing up as a blind person, but I mean, there's just an extent of like, no, around the house he's going to help, and there's all these little things that he probably does for her, and maybe that made him bond with her in a way that he didn't expect. And so that's actually one of my favorite scenes actually early on is the first time that they do kind of like get together and they actually have sex in like a motel room or whatever, and Winter's still hunting them down, and he shows up when they're in bed together, and like she's they're both kind of naked, and they're kind of like there's a bit of a standoff, and like I felt so bad for her because I knew what William Hurt was doing. It was so obvious what he was about to do. And
she was just like, yeah, totally, just wouldn't even think of it.
Yeah, where he's using the handcuffs and he ends up like, and I thought they were going to do like a thing where because he takes the handcuff off of him because they were handcuffed previously from Winter, and they were running around like that, literally tethered together with handcuffs, and they had sex with the handcuffs on, which sounds kinky but really is just inconvenient because they're handcuffed to each other. Yeah. But
I mean, might as well have sex. What else are we gonna do?
Yeah, play pachinko. I mean, well, they're not in Japan at that point, but still. But so he comes in and he gets him the key off of Winter, and he takes his handcuff off, and then he handcuffs Winter to the other one, and she's like sort of laughing like, yeah, this is so great, and he's like, wait a minute, let me just get my clothes on before I handcuff you, and then he just says sorry and leaves. And I'm like, yeah, Claire, come on, you saw this coming. He was so obviously going to bolt it again. I mean, this feels a little dirtier though, because he just had sex with her. It's like, nah, you got something out of this before you ran. Like, you had your encounter with her, and now you're bolting.
Maybe that's why I don't like William Hurt that much.
Maybe. He has like a weird there's like a weird portion of the movie actually I was going to say where like all the hotels, I think it's in Russia, are booked up, so they end up paying a ridiculous amount just so they can sleep in the lobby. So they're all just kind of like camping around in the lobby. That's a whole portion of the movie too. But yeah, so it's in Japan where they go to like a healer, and they got like kimonos on, and this is where they finally connect, where like they kind of like they have like a proper love scene this time. It's not just like passionate like random or handcuffed together sex. It's like a proper like, oh, we're giving ourselves to each other and we're sensual and all these things.
Like you said, because of the vulnerability.
Yeah. So they finally connect, and this is where I tweeted out, I think I'm at the end of Act 1 of this movie at an hour and 56 minutes, because this is the point where I feel like, okay, now that they're finally together as a unit, this is as good as Act 2. Because this is also the part of the movie where he explains to her what he's doing. This is where we learn about the camera and about what he's actually doing. So it really felt like the end of Act 1 to me in that sense. This movie doesn't even really have a 3-act structure. It has to have at least like 5 or 6, but like...
Yeah, I mean, we can sort of group things together into an act, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and then the middle is in kind of Australia, and that's a lot of hijinks. And then I do like the kind of feeling of them coming together when they get to the lab. But then there's a bit of a lull because it's kind of all this music playing and stuff. And I felt the pacing really... Well,
I mean, the movie's been there's been so much movement and motion, and then everything just stops once they get into the outback.
Yeah, and there is something to be said.
You can really feel the halt of the film.
And there is something to be said, I think, where the moment where the satellite thing obviously happens, because there's a whole, like, every so often in the news you hear about them debating if the US are going to nuke it, if that's safer. Is that safe? Is it not safe? And it sounds like they're going to do it, and then this happens where they're in the plane, and it does feel kind of a big apocalyptic thing where all of a sudden they're just gliding on, like, because it's like a desert below them, so it feels like there's something that looks really kind of...
Yeah, the end of the world happened, and they're the end of the world. Like,
what's the word I'm looking for? The tone here is kind of like serene, but also like the feeling of not a funeral. There's a word I'm looking for here, but it doesn't really matter.
Somber.
Yeah, kind of somber. It's somber, but on like a sort of epic scale though, like because of this desert, it feels like somber in an apocalyptic way, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But it feels like a big deal, and I like that. And I like the idea that, like, yeah, it's saying that if you think the world's going to end, you all have to like try and like do whatever you want to do for those last few days, for that last week or whatever. But then when the world doesn't end, you have to go back to some sort of semblance of life. How did you feel about the little fake out at the end, where, like, after they've been separated and they've both gotten healthier, there's a scene where William Hurt's like in the bar in San Francisco, because that's his hometown, and
I thought at first when they met up at the bar that it was a bit of a cop out, and then it turned out to be like, oh, that's how I ended my book, because it should have a happy ending or whatever. I want a happy ending for these, but real life isn't happy.
But it's a beautifully shot scene though, because she sort of just walks in behind him and sneaks up, and there's a moment where he looks up, not at her, but obviously there's a mirror behind the bar, and they kind of hold hands. It's actually a really beautiful scene.
You can't miss that hair.
Where you kind of want it to be real. You're like, oh man, this feels wrong though. It feels a bit cheap, but you want it to be real. And then Sam Neill in the narration says, and that's how I ended the book, but that's not how things really happened. And it's a little bit of a Parasite ending, huh? Yeah, it is, because we end with he actually goes to see his wife and kid and sees them with like a new husband, right? I mean, obviously not the kid's new husband, the new stepdad. And it's kind of this thing where it kind of hammers this point where he has to kind of let go of the past, like that past he can't go back to now, right? And like we actually end the movie with her in like in a space station, where she's looking down over the oceans to like look for how do I get that job problems, and then it ends with this really looking for pollution, for major ocean pollution. And what's so cool about this is that it ends with this thing where the happy family of like Chico, who was really friendly with them, and Bart and Winter and Sandy. Oh, I think Bart's on this video call actually, but the other three are. Winter's there because the PI sort of grows close with him, as does Chico. And because it's just Sam Neill saying, hey, happy birthday, oh by the way, here's a surprise, and it's like a group call on Skype where he brings in Chico and Winter, and they all sing happy birthday in different languages to her, because Chico's French, Winter's German, and he's obviously well, he's not American, I don't know if he's meant to be New Zealander, and it's meant to be English. It's one of those things where I think he's like English. Yeah, but they're all singing happy birthday in different languages, and it ends with her in a space station looking over the world, and it's like kind of like, okay, that's that. See if you'd asked me at the start of this movie, and if you showed me the first 10 minutes, said, where do you think this movie ends? Maybe guess that. Maybe it's poetic that it's like off Earth, like she's literally off the world, right? Yeah. She's at the end of the world. That's when the movie ends. She went to the one place she hadn't been yet, space. Yeah, she's still pushing forward on her adventure, still trying new things. Pretty sweet gig though, like to be on a spaceship in orbit and just looking for ocean pollution. Kind of cool that you don't have to go through any like big training to do it, because I think it was like her 30th birthday, so yeah, doesn't seem like she had a whole lot of time to like go through, I don't know, and there's NASA training. And there's comfort in like she has this weird makeshift family where she's really good friends with these three people. It's kind of a nice happy like beat in the end. Even if there's some stuff of like her and like Sam never being together again, like you get the sense that they both needed each other to go through this part of their life. But like again, if they did go back together though, it would be what the movie's like speaking against. It'd be them chasing the nostalgia of their fleeting romance, of their fling that they've had on that adventure.
Yep, and look at where she is now. She's got a sweet job because she didn't go back.
You've really emphasized in the last 3 minutes how much you love this
awesome.
job. I get it. You like it.
This job.
You like the job. It's a fun job, okay?
Well, I also like the idea that that Wenders thought that in a few years that these would just be civilian jobs that people can have. Like it's like a construction worker or pollution monitoring from space.
It's kind of like an alien thing, right? Because the whole idea of aliens is that they're just essentially truckers in space. That was the whole idea. Is that anyone can be like on a ship crew because it's just normal in the future. It's kind of that idea.
Yeah, it's probably very dangerous work. Like not everybody wants to do it.
Yeah, that's the opposite of what I just said. But okay.
Well, I mean, like construction. Construction is dangerous work.
Okay.
Like, so is being out in space and gathering minerals, stuff like that.
That wasn't the point. I mean, the point I was getting at is that it's normal enough that tons of people have jobs in space, and it's not a weird thing. That's the point I was making.
I was thinking it would be like a blue collar job.
Oh, sure. Okay, sure. I get what you're saying. Yeah. But blue collar can also be, not dangerous things.
That's true. I mean, like labor.
Yeah. True. Yes. Anyway, so I mean that's the end of the movie, and there are parts that we've kind of glossed over because it's 5 hours long. We can't necessarily go into like super detail on everything.
Yeah.
But it is worth mentioning that Sam Neill does stick with her through her cold turkey period. He locks her in a cage and tries to get her over this, and refuses to give her batteries for the little video like player she's got that's showing all the dream image.
And she goes like primal.
Yeah.
She goes real fierce about it.
Yeah. It's like a proper. Little, like I say, it really reminded me of like someone detoxing of like a cold turkey.
Definitely, yeah.
It was definitely that same vibe.
She was in a rehabilitation cage.
Yeah. But what I liked about it is that I never like once, because see when he says like halfway through the movie that he realizes that old relationship that he had with her is done, but he still wants to be in her life, and he still wants to. I think at the end he even says he wants to grow old with her and be there for her, but that's just not what they are anymore. Like. When he first says that he realizes that that's over like halfway through the movie, I believe him. I don't like question him and say, oh no, he's just saying that to himself. Like no, he really does genuinely believe that, and he's there for her now, but it doesn't feel like he's hoping.
It's not romantic anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, I like that element of it. So it's a really good movie. Like honestly, it's a great movie. Even it's probably my least favorite of the 3 Wenders movies I've seen. I think just because it is such a goddamn huge commitment to watch.
It's both my least and my favorite.
And it's also got that like sort of like 40 minutes to an hour that I think is padded out a little bit, but like I thought it was beautiful almost the entire time. I found it captivating. I like the tone, I like the characters, I like the points that it was making. It just watch it in 2 or 3 chunks, like watch it in parts because it is so goddamn
I think
long.
if you can watch it in the whole sitting, like I think it's fine. Like if you put it on early in the morning and you're gonna watch 3 movies anyway, just watch one.
Yeah, you need an intermission to get up and walk around. I mean,
it is surprising that there wasn't one.
Yeah, it's weird because I've seen movies that are like way shorter than this that have intermissions. It's just weird that this one doesn't. But I guess it's because it was made as a director's cut, so they didn't necessarily feel the need to do it.
If this had come out like today, it would have been like a Netflix special.
Sure.
Like 6-parter, or HBO like 6-parter.
Even 3 episodes at like just over 90 minutes each. Like that.
I guess in 1991, like maybe it was around the time of Lonesome Dove, but like were there miniseries really? I guess so. Like The Stand was a miniseries.
Yeah, but not. Popular. Yeah, but The Stand.
I think that was a bit later though.
Yeah, but The Stand was. If you ever, I mean, I've never seen it, but I've seen the trailer. It is dirt cheap. Like it looks nothing. This movie looks great.
Yeah, even Lonesome Dove was like, even though it was huge, it was. That one has some special effects, like lightning effects in it that are like, ugh.
But it's not even just the effects, it just looks cheap. Like the sets look cheap, the locations look cheap, the video quality looks cheap. This movie looks so cinematic and expensive.
Yeah, I think if a director has a vision and a story he wants to tell, then he should take all the time that he needs to tell the story. And, occasionally, if that means we're going to get some 4 or 5 hour films out of it, like, yeah, they're rare. Like, I don't expect my popcorn eating, like, blockbuster films to be this length, but the occasional one I'm okay
Although
with.
they have been ballooning in recent years a little bit. Not to this length, obviously, but they've been ballooning. I mean, I think if you've got this idea that it's going to take 4 hours, I do think this is more of a 4 hour movie. It's like 40 minutes too long, right? Is what I would say, which is weird because the director's cut's only like 2 hours 40, so that's far too short. But I'd almost be.
Yeah.
I'd be fascinated to see what the original cut looks like, though. I'd be fascinated to watch it and see like what's actually
the
cut
original
out.
cut apparently is like 20 hours.
No, not that. No, the original theatrical cut. I'm not saying the original like rough cut.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Well, it didn't get very good reviews, and he's a pretty
No.
beloved director.
I mean, that original rough cut, I guarantee you, probably was what I was joking about at the start when I said that, oh, is it going to be just all this footage of her driving and like just all this atmosphere of like here's all these fancy locations we went to. I will say this about the runtime though, is when I looked at the like when I first discovered the actual cut of the theatrical cut, and then I realized that we were doing the director's cut, my reaction was, Wim Wenders is a madman. Like, how many director's cuts do you know? How many can you think of where the additional runtime is over 100 minutes? That's a whole movie.
No, I don't know.
Like, I think the most I can think of is like 40 minutes. Like, I think some of the Lord of the Rings have like an extra 40 minutes, maybe an hour.
Yeah, but those aren't even really director's cuts. Those are like, we have additional footage. We know that the fans want to see it.
Sure,
Let's just
sure.
make an extended version. Like,
Well,
Peter Jackson has said, like, the theatrical releases are the right cut.
Well, to be fair, half of the director's cuts are that. They just throw the name around willy-nilly.
But you're right, though. That is an example of like quite a lot of footage being added to an already long movie.
Yeah, because Ridley Scott's director's cut, like, technically he calls it that, but it's not really. That's more a case of, oh, they wanted a new cut, so I thought, yeah, I'll do something. I'll make some changes, and So I mean, the theatrical cut of Alien's the one that I prefer watching. It's better pacing. It's a better movie. Mm-hmm. So whereas Aliens, the special edition, is the better one. So that's the one I always watch.
Yeah,
that's the way it is. And then you get to Alien 3, which is a whole different conversation of.
We don't have a director's cut of that, and we never will.
No, but we have a second cut, which is closer to what he probably wanted, that the producer did, but is but it's so different because it's not just like added footage. It actually has alternate versions of things. The theatrical cut is just, it's a whole thing. Anyway, that's a whole conversation for another day. But yeah, so I guess we'll rate the movie then. I guess we're done. Mm-hmm. Tara, what would you rate Until the End of the World?
Yeah, it's a very, very unusual film, but I don't think the length of it is like a detriment for some reason. I do still think it's a really good movie, and I think the sci-fi elements are curious, and like they get it just right enough for me to find it kind of endearing, and it's surprisingly like. Because I don't know, I saw the runtime and I went, oof, I don't know if you can make a movie for this long, and I was wrong. Like it's pretty good. So I think it's I think it's an 8. I'm gonna give it 8, not quite 8.5, but yeah, just an 8. I'm gonna say it's great, but not like. Not just at the cutoff.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar place. I think I'm also going to give it an 8. I think in rewatches, should I ever dare do it,
yeah, right.
it could rise.
Be a hard movie to like show to somebody also.
Yeah. Hey, do you want to watch a movie? It's like 10 p.m. Like, do you want to watch a movie? Yeah, I'll put in this one. Don't pay attention at the runtime. Just put it in. And just like 3 hours later, wait a minute. How much of this movie's left? Another hour 40. Like. Be up till like 3 a.m. So, but like, so yeah, so there's some stuff I'd cut out, but like ultimately it's a great experience, and I do think that I can add it to my list of Wim Wenders is a good director. That's 3 movies of his I've seen now. And even though this is probably my least favorite of the 3 because of the length and because of maybe like some of the things I'd cut out, his confidence as a director and the way he shoots his scenes and how beautiful his films look is still there in this movie. So I would recommend it in that case. But of course, set enough time aside for it and maybe split it in 2
for the day or a weekend.
Yeah. But that is until the end of the world. And as we mentioned earlier, next time we'll be tackling Edge of Tomorrow, because 2020 is the year that movie's set in, and
we need a good popcorn, dumb, but layered film.
Yeah, we need a movie that's less than 2 hours. So Edge of Tomorrow fit the bill.
One that we've seen already, so it'd be easy.
Yeah, pretty much.
One we already know we like.
So yeah, that's what's coming next time. And there's all stuff after that, which you'll hear about soon. So apologies for being a little bit later in the week again. Well, later in the week for patrons, admittedly. I mean, by the time this goes publicly, it'll be at the normal time of the week, and they'll be like, "Well, this was on time." It's actually the previous episode that's late for the public, but this will explain why. This is why. It was this movie. So.
Yep.
Yeah, so let us know what you think of the movie if you've seen it in the comments below. I don't know how many of you will have, but
it's on the Criterion app if you guys have that.
Yep, so you can go watch it. So like and subscribe, all the usual stuff. Get us on the Twitters at the Ace Podcast. You can, of course, support the show by rating the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars and a little review. Helps us out a lot. More people will find us that way. If you want to support the show, and financially, of course, we mentioned Patreon earlier, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, so go and have a look. And once again, apologies for the slightly late bonus episode for February. It'll be in the first couple of days of March. We're recording this on Friday night. We're recording the bonus episode on Sunday night, so it'll be like the 3rd or 4th. That'll go up for patrons. So, and that is Transfers 3. That's the next one. Jack Death, the adventure continues. So look forward to that. But yeah, otherwise, Tara, why don't you promote some other content that comes from MailFuzz TV?
Well, if you're interested in science fiction, you okay, Foxy? If you like science fiction, you could check out our Star Trek Picard reviews that are going on now while the show is still on the air. And you can also check out the older Star Trek reviews that Peter and Connor are working through. They're on season 3 of Star Trek The Next Generation. So that's exciting. Big season. Yeah,
we just did episode 2. So we're just dipping our toes in season 3, but looking forward to some exciting episodes. But that is us. That has been not the longest episode of this show. I think that belongs to one of the Terminator movies. Honestly, like Terminators 3 through Dark Fate were all over 2 hours long. But this is definitely the longest movie we've done, and dare I say, probably the longest movie we ever will do. Probably. I can't imagine something topping this. I'm sure there'll be other 3-hour movies that we'll do at some point, but 5?
Yeah, definitely.
Probably not. So, thank you very much for watching or listening. And once again, we always appreciate it. Keep watching sci-fi movies, guys. And computer, that's salsa.
I got nothing.